As some of you may know, there is a new, what they call a minor update to Camtasia, Camtasia version 9. And what you've noticed probably throughout the Camtasia 9 experience is that Techsmith's really good at coming out with updates and things like that. So 9.0.0 shipped as the initial Camtasia 9 version, and they release these updates. It went through 9.01, 0.02, and all that good stuff. But at a certain point, what Techsmith does is they jump a major number. So the one with the newest, latest, greatest features, and they call it again a minor update as opposed to version 10 would be a major release. So it's just kind of a consolidation of all of the interim updates. If you haven't upgraded to the latest version, your version will be 9.0.5. And in case you don't know, the way you check and see is in Camtasia, you go to Help and About. And you'll see here that I'm running 9.1.0. And these interim releases will continue within this minor 9.1 update. So we'll have 9.1.1, 0.2, etc. until they think there's enough of these stacked up to put out 9.2. So that's a whole bunch of superfluous information you probably didn't need or want to know, but that's the way it works. Also, if you want to know if you have the latest version, you click on Help and then check for updates. And if you are still running one of the earlier versions, it will prompt you to go ahead and download the new version, and you just run the install program pretty much. That's the way she goes there. Okay, so what is entailed in this, I'm going to just kind of touch on the major feature updates. It was released on the 19th of September, and like I mentioned, it's called a minor update, so it's not strictly just 9.1, it is 9.1.0. as I kind of alluded to there. So the new features that we're going to take a look at tonight included in this version are something called Quick Properties panel for motion graphics. There is a new visual effect in our visual effects panel called Device Frame, a new way to extend frames of a video clip that we want to last a little bit longer as a static image, and also integrated support for the PowerPoint file format. If you would like to kind of see all of the other stuff that is included, Techsmith does have a version history page. This is specific to the Camtasia 9 history. So I'll go ahead and put this link in the chat box for you in case you ever kind of wondered or want to know. So here is the new stuff. But they also include like lots of bug fixes. So I went through all of these bug listings here. None of these really ever affected me. So there's nothing here of universal note that I would say. So basically just the new features here. Interestingly, they have left out the PowerPoint one that we're going to talk about. So let's go ahead and kind of rack through a couple of these, and we'll see what's what. I'll show you what they are and how to use them, and then a couple of considerations. So first of all, let's take a look at what is probably my favorite new feature, and there's good and bad news here, and that is called the Quick Access Properties panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the end of my sample project here, and in the Camtasia library, I'll go to my library tab here. Everyone gets these assets installed by default when you install Camtasia 9, and I'm talking specifically about two of these groups, the intro clip motion graphics and the lower third motion graphics. These are the only two groups of stuff in all of your library that this particular feature applies to. So let's take a look at lower thirds, and what you'll see after you do the upgrade and install is that you now have several copies of these assets, and what happens is if we add it to the timeline, so there's all of this stuff in here. It's a group. If I open the group, you'll see that it is comprised of, and I'm going to expand the whole thing here. There is just a hideous amount of stuff in here. There are the shapes, the text boxes, the little logo image, and all of these shapes and stuff. Well, so if I wanted this not be powder blue, I wanted it to be a different color, changing some of these things is pretty much a nightmare. So here's the blue shape. So I mean, there's all these extra hoops and stuff you got to jump through, and all of this complexity you have to wade through to be able to change the properties of all this stuff. That being the case, here's the way it works in the new version, which is pretty sweet. So what you'll see is that here was the original one from the library, the basic third 01, and when you do the update, you'll have basic third 01-91. I'm not sure why they name it that way other than to make it distinguishable, but let's add this one to the timeline at the playhead. When you do that, you'll see that now we have a new tab up here called Quick Properties. So, watch in stunned amazement as my hands never leave my arms. I'm going to completely modify this whole thing without ever expanding this group. So the quick properties basically expose all of this crap, all of these shapes and all of that stuff up in this little window, up in this window here, as opposed to having to open the group and do all that other hideous work. So let's just kind of make some changes. And I could right click and import a new logo. I'm not going to mess with that at the moment. But the other shapes that are involved here, remember our powder blue, I'll go ahead and change that to the red again, and I'll just leave the rectangle as white. But now, as I scrub through, the properties of the other elements and stuff are changed without, again, having to do a whole bunch of work and monkeying around. And let's try circle ripple. So this one, again, text and Camtasia dude. We'll change the circle to red. We'll change this rectangle to blue and change that rectangle to yellow. So this is nice. I like it. And you can change the fonts and, you know, all of that other good stuff. But essentially, it just exposes the properties of the shapes and stuff. So it is infinitely easier to modify that. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is quick properties are only exposed with these very special files, specially created files, or versions, I guess, in intro clips and lower thirds. It only applies to the ones with the -91 extension, and you can't create your own. So in my libraries here, I have lots of custom stuff that I've created just like this, using shapes and text boxes and all that good stuff. Techsmith uses a special tool to create this version that enables these properties to be exposed. And I have a message into the developers at Techsmith. I'm trying to use a backdoor channel to figure out what they use to create this. So kind of waiting on that answer. But that's pretty cool. Device frame for visual effects. So let's create us some what are called device frames. So here, I'm going to go ahead and add a video clip to the timeline. Here's one where I'm just kind of poking at a webcam. So I'm going to go ahead and resize this to fit my video dimensions. And if I scrub through here, there we go. I have a video clip. So with a video clip, or this also works with a still image, I can either go to my visual effects tab over here, or my favorite trick is to click on the item and then right click on the canvas and add visual effect, right? It's a lot easier than stabbing around through here, in my opinion. If you have something on canvas and you want to add a visual effect to it, just right click on it up here, when you have it selected on the timeline, and add visual effect. So here's my drop shadow, the border, colorize, all the other ones we know about. There is a new one called device frame. So I'm going to apply that effect, and what you'll see is that it took my video clip and put it inside this, they call them devices. This is the frame of a device that happens to be a desktop monitor. And the background here is actually a video clip, but it's very subtle. There's a little bit of movement and stuff, but my video plays inside this little video box here. If we look at the properties here, there's the device frame properties. You can change it by clicking the drop down here, and you can have a selection of just a few different device frames that you can use. So I'll change it to a MacBook Pro, and now it has a different video background. You can change it to an iPhone, which looks kind of screwy, in my opinion. It's also in portrait mode. They don't have the landscape widescreen option here. So that's some feedback we've been giving to those guys. The Google Pixel, it's basically just another mobile device. So for these kinds of things, you really almost need to have a source video that is kind of correct in dimensions, tall and skinny. I'll go ahead and remove this effect. One thing that you can do if you have a widescreen video is you hold your Alt key, and I'm just going to crop this. So you can kind of monkey with getting it kind of in the game. And now if I reapply that visual effect, and we'll change it to the iPhone. Since I used a non-standard size video clip, what you'll have to do then is kind of resize your image to fit the screen, and now it looks kind of okay. I guess this is really designed for using clips that are shot this way on a mobile device. So here I have just a little clip that I shot with my phone of Maggie the Wonder Dog, and I did it in portrait mode. So there she is. There's Maggie. Isn't she sweet? So in here, let's go ahead and add the mobile device to that, a device frame, and I'll make it the iPhone. And then again, since it wasn't a widescreen video to start with, you got to grab, and the easiest way to do it is just to grab the sides. And you don't have to worry about stretching it out because it will maintain the aspect ratio. Just grab each side and fill your screen. And there we go. So like I mentioned, this is actually a video background, and you can kind of see it there. It's very subtle. Just kind of doing that thing. So yeah, that's all kind of fun and everything. Let me show you a couple of other things here. I'll switch this guy back to my desktop one. And let's add that device frame. Okay, so I don't know, I guess it's an okay effect. I actually have tricks that I use to do this that I'll show you in a little while, but I guess they thought it was pretty cool. We've been kind of mimicking this kind of thing, like I say, for a while now, using green screen techniques that I'll give you a link to tutorials on and stuff. But one thing that you could probably do, and Techsmith actually states this, they kind of think of this as an intro scene. So what they kind of suggest is kind of letting it roll for a little bit to get context that, oh, this is a video that I'm watching on my computer monitor. And then at some point here, I'm going to go ahead and add an animation. Animations. I'll just drop a custom animation right there. And then I'm basically just going to zoom in. Let's just scale it up. Now I'm pretty much just me in the video full screen, so let's kind of see what that looks like. I'll stretch it out and make it a little slower. So they kind of suggest that, okay, you start off like this, and then maybe zoom in to a final video view. Yeah, that's okay. That's kind of interesting, I guess. I don't think it's a killer feature or anything like that, but the way that you can add them in there and stuff is really easy. There are no hoops to jump through and things like that. So another way I could do that is I'll just go ahead and delete that animation. And if I didn't want it to zoom in, let's just put our playhead here. Let's go ahead and split this clip. And then on this second copy, or after the split, I'll do the scale. So let's scale it like that. And now what's going to happen is it's just going to jump from this view to the next scene. Boom. That's another way that you can kind of use this as a little bit of visual interest and then just jump to your regular video content. Okay, so that's that feature. Not earth-shattering. Good news is that, yeah, it's kind of easy and stuff. The bad news is, again, you can't create your own. So you can't create your own device frames, at least not yet. And you also can't create your own motion elements, like we talked about before. So let's see, what else do we have? Okay, extend frame. So here, let's try one more quick demo. Everybody probably knows that you can extend a frame of video. Right now, you can put your playhead at the end of a clip. You can right-click and extend frame. And I could extend this still image for like 5 seconds. Say OK. And watch what happens. The video plays, and then at the end, static image for basically then as long as I want. Okay, well, that was kind of simple to me, but in their wisdom of trying to make things even easier, here's the way you can do it now. So here I have my clip. I want to extend the end of this clip as a static image. All you do is hold your Alt key and watch what happens to my cursor here as I move over the end. It turns to this little box thingy. So if I drag this out, I can basically make it last as long as I want. And it will be a still image. So yeah, I mean, I could still do that before, but the maybe additionally interesting thing is that you can apply that to the beginning of a clip as well. So you can extend it kind of forward. So here's the first frame of my video clip. If I wanted this to be static, you can hold the Alt key, and before the video starts, have a picture. And boom, video starts to play. So, I don't know, kind of handy, I guess. A little quicker, a little easier. The one thing that is still busted, in my opinion, is it's very easy to extend frames if you have nothing else behind this clip on the timeline. Watch what happens when I put Maggie the Wonder Dog, boom, right in there. So now I want to extend this last frame, but I have something right behind it. In Camtasia 8, you could extend any frame you want for as long as you want, and it would shift this down the timeline. Well, in Camtasia 9, you no longer can do that. You have to make a hole. So if I hold the Alt key, you'll see that I can't. I can't even right-click and extend frame. Why? Because there's something right behind it. Well, you got to drag this over, and now I can click on this guy, hold my Alt key, and do this. And then you got to move this back. This is brain dead busted because it worked great in Camtasia 8. But it is what it is, so just so you're aware. Okay, so that's that. And then finally, we have one more little deal here. Again, pretty marginal in my opinion, and that is the ability to import PowerPoint slides. Note here is that they can only be static PowerPoint slides. So here, I have a slide deck that I'm working on, and it's a nice deck, but there are no animations. No animations at all, just cool still images that deliver, a good piece of content. And maybe I have a narration file or something like that I've recorded in maybe Audacity. And now it's time to take these slides, pull them into Camtasia, and match them up with my audio narration. Currently, I could do this, and the way I would do that is I would go to File, Save As, Browse to a location, and instead of saving as a PowerPoint presentation, I would save it as PNG graphics. Now when I say save, it's going to ask me, do you want to export all the slides or just one? So if I wanted to pull all these slides into Camtasia and make a video presentation out of them, I would say all slides. And what PowerPoint's going to do is it's going to spit out PNG images of each of these slides, at which point I could import them into Camtasia. No problem. Just as import the images. Well, it's a little bit easier in this particular version, so let's see here. Let's here's a slide deck. So I could basically drag and drop this right into the clip bin. So like I say, PowerPoint slides are now a supported file type. You can actually even just drag it to the timeline. So let's try that, and we'll see what happens. So what it did was it drag and drop easy, just took all of my slides and popped them on the timeline. And it did that, if I hover over here, you see that the duration is 5 seconds. That's kind of the default because that's the default duration that I have my preferences in Camtasia set to. If you want to change the default, you can go to Edit, Preferences, and under Timing, you'll notice that we have a default duration for images. So if you always wanted your slides to be 10 seconds long or however long, you could change this default, but they don't have to stay 10 seconds. So let me set up a little bit of a demo here. I'll show you why this might be kind of handy dandy. I need to find an audio file, so let me go grab one here. Okay, I'm just going to grab this guy. So here we have all of our slides that we just imported. And what I'm going to do is put my audio track to kind of simulate a real live situation. So this would be a case where, let's set this up a little bit. I have my slides, I created a script, and I recorded my audio narration in Audacity. There's no animations, no transitions in the slides themselves, just some nice, good-looking visuals, right? That I can certainly make a nice presentation out of. So let's go back to Camtasia. So it imported all my slides, boom, 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 and I recorded my narration in Audacity. So now let's go in and let's fine-tune and tweak this a little bit. This is my first slide, and for demonstration purposes, let's say that I talk about this until like right here in my narration. So here's kind of a tip that I'll give you. I listen to my audio, and I know that I'm talking about my 30-day quick start, talking about it, talking about it, talking about it, and we'll say till right here. And then I start talking about the 5 steps, the 5 steps. Well, you'll notice that this doesn't line up. does it? This needs to stay until I start talking about my next point right here. So the way I would do this is I'd listen to the narration, and then on the audio track itself, click right in the little gray area here and drop a marker. Okay, that's where my second slide will start. And the reason I put the marker here on the audio file itself, on the audio track, if you just drop a regular marker on the timeline, it doesn't always line up when you start moving stuff around. So if you think about what I want to actually mark, I want to mark the point on the audio track where I need to start speaking about something else. If you mark it right on your audio track, then it will always be exactly the right point, even if something shifts on the timeline. A timeline marker marks a point in time. A media marker, which is what this is called, marks a point on the media. Right? So I hope that makes sense. So this is where I start talking about slide 2. So here's how we easily line this up perfectly. Here, I'm going to click on my slide 2. I'm going to hold the Shift key, and I'm going to slide all of my images down until, boom, I start talking about slide 2. In fact, I might even mark these. Slide 2. Start talking about slide 2 right here. Exactly. Now, all I have to do, since this is a static image, is drag this guy into Meet. Right? Listen, 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 listen. And oops, right here, I start talking about slide 3. Drop a marker. Slide 3. Boom. Go to slide number 3, hold the Shift key, and slide it into place. Snap. Drag this guy over. Boom. Now, these static images are going to line up perfectly with the narration. It's not a lot of fancy smanchy animations or anything, but you can deliver a nice visual message this way. And certainly, since these are just images, well, I can add things in Camtasia, like maybe a transition. So I could add, fade transitions in between. Let that roll. I wouldn't go wild with these. Maybe pick a single one and kind of stick with it. Don't use a lot of the cheesy ones, stuff like that. And don't use every single transition, a different one between every slide. That's amateur night. Don't want to do that. Okay, so hopefully that is kind of a good overview for you.